think we have to reset the bar of expectations. They've been growing so fast and so far for so long that people have just come to expect constant innovation, constant growth, everything better, better, better. And so I think that given that everyone has lost faith in the company, there's sort of this expectations reset. And the second point is more mathematical. So even if they come out with all the rumored and hoped for products, watches, rings, larger phones, smaller phones.
Wait, rings?
You know, there's a guy out there with a ring. I don't know. But
I like the sound of that.
people spend all this time trying to speculate on what Apple's next product will be. And I say, well, this is a company with a 30-year track record innovation. That's what I'm going to bet on. But even if those things come out today, right, they're not going to have a material impact on earnings. And so this is kind of a year where we're not going to get a lot of earnings growth. So a lot of those things would throw through to next year, because even if they come up with a cheaper iPhone, margins would go down, right? A larger iPhone, probably margins would go down. So even if volumes went up, right, we wouldn't have a mathematical impact on growth. So if you're investing in Apple as a growth company, then you're probably having to wait till next year. So that's why I kind of call it this year.
Should you be investing in Apple as a growth company? Because right now, if you look at the PE ratio, it's priced like a value stock.
Right. Well, another way to look at the PE ratio is so the average of the S&P.
Like, look at this. This is Apple's PE over the past 10 years. You know this well, but really, you don't look at this often enough. This is an extraordinary chart.
And as Scott Galloway of NYU told us, it puts it on par PE-wise with Dell.
Dell, yeah.
Right. So another way to look at it is the average of the S&P is 14 times forward earnings. And so that, if you look at Apple and you say, is Apple a above average, below average company? I think the balance sheet is above average, right? The quality of the products are above average, right? Its customer base, 500 million iTunes, people with credit card, accounts around the world, that's above average. Earnings growth this year, below average, but so let's say average, right? So the market's telling you that this company is going to earn $27 in earnings next year. They did 45 last year. We think they'll do 44 this year. But at 14 times earnings, they would have to do $27. Earnings would have to get cut nearly in half to justify the valuation. I just don't think that's a possibility.
Let's talk about the CEO strategy here for Tim Cook. Apple is notorious for being mysterious about its product, about what's next, about what it does with cash. Does he need to change that at all now that there's all sorts of negative perceptions around what's next?
Right. So, I had a long conversation with a value long guy who made that argument to me that, it's no longer can they be secretive. Like they have to give us the
Tim Cook needs to become a Ben Bernanke, effectively open up the kimono.
They have to give it, like this guy in particular happens to be a semiconductor fan, and so you look at, Intel and they give you the roadmap, right? And you say, well, yeah, but Intel still only makes one product, which is a chip, right? And so Apple is constantly innovating into new product categories. And so another way to look at that is, show me another large cap tech company in the last 5 years, 10 years, that has introduced a new product segment that is today a reportable material segment. Not Google, right? Not Amazon, right? Not Microsoft, certainly not Dell. I mean, Dell and HP
what about
try to
Netflix?
buy them.
Reed Hastings, he's changing the rules a little bit.
One product, though, right? I mean, so, he's done phenomenally well. We're big fans of Reed and Netflix, but it's still, they've executed really, really well on one product. They really, I just can't think of, maybe somewhere in software, but which enterprise software, which I don't know as a segment that well, but I would say large cap tech, there's no other company that has introduced new product categories. And everyone's saying, well, Apple should tell us what the next one is. I don't think they do.
What does it mean, though? So, I mean, let's rewind the clock. A year and a half, Steve Jobs dies. There weren't too many Apple skeptics around at that point. But those who were skeptical of the stock,
well, the stock was 400, so but they went to 7, so there were skeptics.
More or less envisioning a future that has played out kind of the way it has for the past 18 months, right? That the Steve Jobs sort of halo and euphoria would continue for a little while because. Because everything that he'd been doing with Apple would survive up to a certain point. But then when Steve was gone and they began to run out of fresh ideas and they had an operator running the company, it would become apparent, right, just what Apple's weaknesses are. Well, it kind of looks like we follow that script.
Well, you could almost blame Steve Jobs then, because everyone has said that the products that are in the market today were actually part of the Steve Jobs design team.
Right.
So Steve failed, in that not having that next product for them. But again, people are looking at the last 6 months and saying this is the future of Apple, and I'm saying, again, this is a 30-year track record. They have a phenomenal balance sheet. I think they have some of the smartest guys in the industry. I just simply don't believe that they're done. But I can't prove that. If you look at the numbers, earnings are going to be down 20% year over year this quarter. Maybe a little bit worse, right? I mean, I almost hope for worse, because let's just flush out the remaining skeptics, who just have given up faith in this company and say, all right, well, but how do you invest in a tech company that is shown to innovate in the future without being able to know exactly what that future is? And I don't know what that is, but I'm investing in the company, the track record, and the team.